Yeah! Hello and hi and welcome back once again for another piping hot episode of Polly's great big ol' honkin' pile of media. That's more of like the unofficial internal name. I don't really think that mouthful of words would fit very well in a logo. And the logo is already a disaster, comprised of 3 different fonts anyway, so you know. Graphic design do be my passion, as everybody knows. Anyway, you know why we're here. I know why we're here. We are here to once again dive into some bite-sized reviews of everything that I got up to over the last month or so. So, without further delay, let's just dive in. There's no way that I could start this month's music portion without mentioning the recent passing of Steve Albini. His work has influenced every aspect of my work in audio, and the albums that he's recorded, engineered, and performed on have been formative to so many aspects of my life. And working at Electrical Audio had long been a dream of mine for years, and one that I'll probably still never let go of. But thankfully, we were at least given one final gift of music with the album To All Trains, which released a week after his passing, and while it takes a bit of the sting away, no matter how fun, funny, diverse, and great it is, it'll always be an album that leaves me wanting more, and it's not just because it's only 28 minutes long. For the uninitiated, Shellac is an experimental noise rock outfit that's always had a fun devil-may-care sound to their music and lyrics cut with equal parts real and irony. There's just as much time spent with head-bobbing grooves as there is off-kilter, structurally weird pieces that are never given enough time to sort of fly off the rails in the ways that maybe a Melvin's record might at times. Lyrical themes also prove to swing just as wild, often painting momentary scenarios in a haiku-like fashion about the girl outside with great hair or a famous union-affiliated inflatable rat. Other times you'll get something that's very real, like Tattoos, which is a scathing indictment of how we handled and continue to handle the COVID pandemic and makes no bones about the awful impact it's had. It's an unpredictable ride, musically and lyrically, that left me delighted the entire time. Shellac likely never set out to do anything all that special with To All Trains, and in a way, I guess that's kind of what makes it somewhat comforting. It's just a really solid and succinct album of what they do. And though it was never intended, your final album ending on a track named I Don't Fear Hell with the refrain of, if there's a heaven, I hope they're having fun, 'cause if there's a hell, I'm gonna know everyone, is so damn grossly poetic that all I could do was slap my desk and laugh out loud the first time I heard it, which is a reaction that I can only think would be appreciated. Thank you for everything you gave us, Steve. Rock on. The summer bangers do be rolling in at full force now. I'm not typically into drill, so this one's a bit of an out of left fielder for me. I originally only checked out the track Band It Up because Tierra Whack was listed as a feature, and after that song lit me right the hell up, I decided to run it back and give the whole album a go, and I'm pretty sure that Almighty So isn't gonna leave my summer rotation. The thing that makes this album work is really just down to its raw energy. Seriously, go listen to Too Trim or Jesus and not get hype. The production, handled chiefly by Keef himself, is just big and booming with all the orchestral and airy synth pads and keys that you come to expect from trap and drill, but there's just something unique about Keef's use of drums that really makes this collection of tracks so high energy and enjoyable. The man never met a snare roll he didn't love, and his placement of some seriously thumping kicks lead to some of the sickest drops, breakdowns, and fills. Keef's performances themselves are similarly high energy. The lyrical themes are simple, but Keef's high energy, delivery, and just genuinely funny one-liners out of nowhere make him sound more lucid and interested than he's sounded in years. And tracks like Believe and Drifting Away even show a few moments of rare introspection that help balance things out a little bit. This album's just a hell of a lot of fun. At 65 minutes, there's not even a single track I'd call a skip on it. It's always exciting when an album that you absolutely have no expectations for can completely take you by surprise. RoboCop is one of my favorite movies of all time. I have vivid memories of my dad bringing that VHS home in 1987 when I was a mere 7 years old, and that movie became a large part of the foundation for what I love about action movies, and it would continue to inspire me even to this day with its over-the-top humor and satire of corporate America and the police. RoboDoc is, without a doubt, the best and most thorough documentation of a film's creation I've ever seen. Through 4 60 to 80-minute episodes, the series takes us from the movie's conception and then chronologically walks us through the entire film, scene by scene, and tells the story exclusively through the voices and the people who were there. We get some incredible insight throughout the process from lead actors Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, and Kurtwood Smith, but the producers of this docuseries also tracked down as many secondary characters as they could, even like the most minor, like one-note characters, who genuinely have some really interesting insights and incredible stories from the set. There's also truckloads of commentary from and about legendary director Paul Verhoeven, who comes off as both a complete and utter maniac, but also the only kind of creative genius that could have pulled off the unique voice that RoboCop's storytelling has. This just made me smile, start to finish. I'll always treasure RoboCop for the memories of it I share with my dad and how it so deeply impacted my own creative work, and everything that RoboDoc reveals about its creation only makes everything that I love about it feel even more special now. So what are you waiting for? Go watch RoboCop already, and then go watch RoboDoc. I guarantee you that when you're finished, you're gonna come right back to this review, and all you'll have to say is...
I'd buy that for $1.
Nope, can't show you that. Definitely cannot show you that. Oh, jeez. Yeah, no, get that out of here, no. So anyway, this is Gushing Over Magical Girls, a show that if you are plugged into the anime world at all, you've probably already made your mind up about. It's a hard one to talk about because the material isn't going to jive with everybody, so if you're not into ecchi content as well as discussion and depictions of kink and sexual stuff, this one isn't going to be on your watch list. The story centers on Utena Hiragi, a girl who lives in a world where magical girls are just the norm, and she is just absolutely in love with them and the justice they stand for, and their unrelenting will to always stand tall in the face of adversity. Through a bizarre set of circumstances, she ends up becoming capable of transforming into a magical girl herself, with the twist being that she must use her powers for evil, which pits her against the magical girls whom she loves so much. And after only a couple of confrontations with them, discovers a deep-seated taste for sadism, torturing her poor idols any chance she gets, while slowly coming to understand the deeper reasons why it excites her. And yes, there's actually a pretty wholesome reason underneath it that's not rooted in sex at all, but it might take a little while to get there. On the surface, yes, let's just be honest here, this show is absolutely about its ecchi content. It leans into it as a focal point, often for humor's sake, and is absolutely there to be gazed at as well. But I also felt that there was valuable commentary and character progression through that material. In its own hypersexualized and comedic way, it's a coming-of-age story with an emphasis on the discovery and exploration of sexuality. And beyond the sexual content, it also has a lot of really fun characters that, despite the show's actual focus, do end up with a good bit of growth over the series, and there's more attention paid to that in the overall plot than I thought there would be. Gushing Over Magical Girls is absolutely not a show that I'm going to recommend to anybody. You already know whether you want to indulge in what it's offering or not. It's hardly essential, and truthfully, it's a pretty janky show production-wise with some subpar animated sequences, and what the show seems to be trying to say about kink and sexuality can often feel very at odds with its voyeuristic nature. There's definitely some warm and touching moments here, but it takes a while to get there. And in the end, the framing and content just isn't gonna work for everyone, and that's totally okay. There's definitely better magical girl shows out there, there's better Yuri, there's absolutely better comedies and coming-of-age stories. Gushing Over Magical Girls just happens to be one that I checked out that I thought was kind of alright. Just as a heads up, this is one that you can grab for free on Steam. You don't need the anniversary edition that may pop up if you go searching, so just so you know that ahead of time. The first Narcissu is one of the visual novels I read back in the day that was a big inspiration in me wanting to write my own visual novel someday. It's a short 1 or 2 sitting story that's packed with emotion and meaning. It left a huge impression not only due to the messages it wanted to impart about life, but also how possible it was to tell an impactful story in this medium with minimal art and a short runtime. Narcissu First and Second is a 1-2 punch of stories focused on characters living with terminal illness. The first story features a nameless protagonist new to the 7th floor hospice ward. He's welcomed by Setsumi, a girl who's already done a lot of time on the 7th floor and whose time is likely running short. The two bond over their shared boredom of seemingly waiting for the inevitable, and, well, they steal a damn car and run away early in the story and set out for unknown destinations with only the shared desire to die anywhere but their homes or on the 7th floor. It's a touching and heartrending story whose focus is primarily on one's agency and what freedom truly means when faced with such a dire situation. It may seem like a downer, but I promise you there is an intensely positive and uplifting message in what this game's saying. Narcissu Side Second is a prequel to the first game and focuses on 2 protagonists. The first being Setsumi from the first game, who, while she is ill at the start of this story, hasn't yet been admitted to the 7th floor hospice ward. The second is Himiko, a church-skipping gearhead with an energetic personality who unfortunately does end up as a resident of the 7th floor. Setsumi ends up meeting Himiko, and the two quickly form a bond with one another due to the isolation they feel from being ill. The toll it's taken on their families and those around them is a big part of the story, and it spends a lot of time with its characters ruminating on other people's kindness, if what they're experiencing is a punishment, and questioning religion and God. It all comes together as Himiko's past correlates to the new relationship she now shares with Setsumi, and the way that this story brings everything together in its final hour is just deserving of a standing ovation. I'll definitely say that these stories aren't for the faint of heart. It's not a story that shies away from the reality of death. It's not a story that gives you the catharsis of warm smiles and being surrounded by those you love waiting to peacefully pass on. It looks at being terminally ill from the point of view of those living that experience and all the fear, anger, and sadness that encompass knowing your death is imminent and assured. It asks tough questions, it gives even harder answers, and if you've experienced a loved one pass on from terminal illness, this is just gonna hit really hard. Still, I think these 2 stories are wonderful pieces of fiction with lots of uplifting themes to impart if you can handle just how heavy it can be at times. Lily's Day Off is a cute little visual novel focused on its creator's OC idol, Lily. In this case, the OC stands for overly cute because, come on, she's absolutely adorable. No wonder she's a world-famous idol. The setup is pretty simple. You, the self-insert protagonist, have some kind of connection to Lily, and that connection is determined by the choices that you make in the branching storyline. Are you Lily's manager, just looking out for her best interests? Are you her obsessed stalker that's willing to go to some pretty desperate lengths to take her down? Or are you just BFFs that are gonna go on fun shopping trips together? You can beat all of them across the game's brief story spanning 16 endings that are all ultimately pretty easy to get through and go down real smooth. Even when the story gets dark, it's never really explicit or awful, and I really appreciated the light-hearted dialogue and humor. There's even a pretty solid payoff during the true ending, which ties everything together in a surprisingly clever way. There's always room in my gaming time for cute little one-off stories like this, and it's definitely the palate cleanser I needed after what Narcissu did to me. But the Lily shenanigans don't just stop there. Oh no, the Lily hole goes much deep. Yeah, I'm gonna really have to start scripting these things out a little more before recording. Lily's back! In a sequel that was released about 2.5 years after Lily's Day Off, Lily's Night Off operates on a similar premise. You wake up on the side of the road after having fallen on top of Lily, and you have no idea what's happened prior. You do know that she is, of course, a world-famous super idol, and the game kind of just proceeds similarly to the first game from there, with another 16 or so bite-sized stories for you to explore with the simple choice system. The structure is the same, but everything around it is just taken entirely to the next level. Hell, it's taken about 3 or 4 levels higher if we're being honest. The presentation this time around is much more varied, with loads of new high-resolution sprites and backgrounds, lots of really cool and fun visual effects to keep the game looking dynamic, and absolutely gorgeous and hilarious CGs for every single route in the game from some incredibly talented artists. This is such an incredible leap over the original's presentation in every way. But it's not just all the gamey stuff that got better. The writing is also much sharper and aware of its strengths this time around. Dialogue is even snappier than before, and the routes lean much harder into the absurdity that only occasionally poked its head out in the first game. Characters feel much more dialed in this time around, and there's even more of them to enjoy. Nim and Vicky are fantastic additions to the insanity that erupts from this game, and have made them so memorable and lovable in such a small amount of time is pretty admirable. Hashtag Team Vicky, by the way. Potato friends for life. Lily's Day Off felt like a fun experiment that ended up working really well because it had a cool premise and a fun sense of humor. Lily's Night Off feels like the fully realized version of that. It took only the strengths from the first game and leaned into them in the best possible ways, while adding so many bells and whistles on top of that. It's a complete package. It's laugh out loud hilarious. It's absolutely cute. We stan Lilypad Lily and her fellow Lilypads for life in this house. I have a prevailing opinion, and it's that you know you're in for a good video game when it starts with something as simple and as effective as a good old-fashioned stabbing.
Just wanna get a knife and go. Stab, stab, stab.
Of course, boiling 1000 times resist down to just that is obviously very silly, but it definitely makes for a striking first impression seeing the All-Mother, who is basically the god of this world, get brutally assassinated right off the bat in the cold open. We're immediately left with questions, and as Watcher, a genetic clone of the All-Mother who must only observe, will spend the next several hours witnessing the events that led to this extreme action, as well as living through the memories of the All-Mother herself to piece together her past, which supposedly holds clues that will reveal a 1,000-year lie. If all of that sounded like a big load of gibberish, then 1000 Times Resist may not be for you. But if the idea of a winding and deep sci-fi narrative colored strongly with themes of transgenerational diaspora trauma and a non-linear narrative sounds exciting, then I have no doubt that you're going to enjoy this game as much as I did. The game is primarily a walking simulator where you'll spend most of your time either traversing All-Mother's fragmented memories or exploring the vast hub world where the sisters currently reside, known as the Orchard. There's some light gameplay scattered throughout the communion sequences with Gravity Rush-inspired platforming and shifting through time to solve a few easy puzzles here or there to progress the story. This game's not going to be doing too much to test your twitch reflexes or anything like that, so you won't have to worry about too much difficulty. My only real issues are that the zip segments can sometimes feel a little too unguided on where your next objective is, and the orchard, while it's an amazingly creative display of architecture, can sometimes feel a bit too difficult to navigate while searching for your objectives, and the waypoint system isn't particularly refined enough to be of much use. But none of that really bogs the game down much. It's really all about the story and how the game presents it. And for the most part, it knocks that out of the park on nearly every single at-bat. The world is endlessly fascinating. The main characters and all the NPCs littered throughout the orchard are chock full of interesting conversations to have. I particularly enjoyed my time with Bartender and Healer, for instance. And the pacing with which the story slowly unfurls always left me eager for each new chapter. I never felt impatient with how the game wanted to reveal itself to me, and sometimes it even surprised me by giving me an interesting nugget or info or revelatory scene earlier than I expected. Being a talky big brain game, there are definitely times when the dialogue can get a little self-indulgent, or maybe times when the winding metaphors run a layer or two too deep, but the confidence of the writing as well as the actor's ability to portray the material with clarity is always able to get things back on track. That said, there are moments where characters appear to be yelling or require a bit more intensity that feel a bit under-directed, but that never really wrecks scenes or anything. 1000 Times Resist is a heady, heavy, and thematically messy story because for it to be effective at what it's trying to tell us, it just has to be. The specific traumas it deals with and how it presents them feel as heavy as they need to be because it comes from such a lived and grounded place. It doesn't shy away from the uncomfortable and intentionally obfuscates the mundane at times, maybe to a frustrating degree at points, but it still feels honest. It can be a bit much at times, but it carries everything across the finish line spectacularly, and as a narrative experience, I'll be thinking about it and re-examining this one for a good while to come. And there you have it. Another month down. Hard to believe that the next time we're together, we'll already be halfway through the year. I don't really know how I feel about that right now, which is honestly kind of a lie. It's just all impending doom. It's all bad and doom and gloom. Whatever. As a side note, there's actually a few other albums that I wanted to do segments for in this episode, but after Steve Albini passed away, I kind of just didn't listen to much other than albums he and his bands had made or albums that he had worked on in a recording capacity for basically the rest of the month. So I'll try and rope those segments into the next video if I can. And as always, if there's anything in the video you saw and you want to talk about, you can always just drop a comment and we can have the most knockdown, drag out, uncivilized discussion about it. And of course, thank you so much for letting me have a few moments of your time, and I hope to catch you the next time I release one of these. You have a nice rest of your month, and we'll see you then. Bye!